So we have another tragic shooting of a Trump supporter, and there are many unanswered questions about the man who allegedly killed him. So given your law enforcement background, what does it tell you that the security guard was not licensed in Denver? It was not even an employee of the agency that he claimed to be with.
It tells me there's negligence on many levels. I mean, you have the news agency, you have the so-called security agency that's now denying, culpability for this individual, saying it might have been a subcontractor or such. And then you had the reasoning why he was there. When Matthew Dolof's name came out, it took me all of 5 minutes to check his background and do a social media check where he has anti-police rhetoric, pro Denver, Occupy Denver, pro-Occupy Democrats, anti-Trump rhetoric, avid pot user, marijuana user for years. Allegedly he had got his concealed carry permit in 2018, so he hasn't even been carrying a gun very long. But here he is, acting as an expert, security expert in this volatile situation. That is just tragic all around for Mr. Keltner and his family.
Exactly, and considering the deep dive that you did into the alleged shooter, the gunman in this situation, do you think his left-leaning, outright leftist agenda in the past that he's bragged about confronting Trump supporters out in public, do you think that kind of contributes to motive at all here in this case?
Oh, it absolutely will. His mindset, his past lack of training or training from what they say he had, will definitely take part in this. There was the initial argument with that agitator. Now, that agitator was at several different places during this rally, that Black Guns Matter agitator who was trying to pick fights with people throughout this event from the start to finish. There's multiple videos of him doing that. And it seems that this news agency and this security officer with their producer was always in that right place at the right time when this was trying to happen. At the end of this argument, something distracts Mr. Keltner to the right where he goes towards the shooter, Mr. Doloff. What distracted him to go that way? What caused him over there? Because he disengaged from the agitator and walked directly over to Mr. Doloff. So what transpired there? Now, there's that Associated Press, the Denver photographer that took a chain of photographs. Now, they released all those photographs that show a frame by frame of the smack, before the smack, the grabbing of Mr. Keltner. There's 2 photos in that timeline missing if you look at the metadata on those photos. Why would they not release those photos? What do those photos show? It happens to be where the individual, Mr. Doloff, is reaching for his firearm and actually has the firearm produced to fire the firearm. I'd be very interested to see, A, why those pictures are omitted in what was released, and B, what they show. Mr. Doloff absolutely had no right to use deadly force in this incident, regardless if he was smacked and regardless if he was maced. Those are non-lethal means of force. You do not meet that with lethal force.
Exactly, and going off of that, going back to the agitator, the Black Guns Matter t-shirt wearer that we saw earlier in that clip tonight, after the shooting, after Mr. Keltner is shot and he's on the ground, you see that agitator and he starts running away from the scene, almost giddy. He's kind of jumping up in the air and he's yelling, "He got rocked in the dome," making all sorts of crude comments about Keltner being shot in the head. It seemed fatal at the moment, of course, as we know now that he ended up passing away about an hour later in the hospital. So it is very strange what this agitator's role is, if he knew the Doloff and 9 News at all. Very interesting stuff there. And to play devil's advocate, going off of what you were saying earlier, is there any way that the shooting could be justified? And I know the investigation, obviously, it's too early, it hasn't played itself out now, but is there any way for, say, a leftist to come in and say that the security guard, the unlicensed one that is, acted justifiable in any way?
Well, the fact that he was unlicensed, the fact that he was working there illegally under Denver law takes away a lot of affirmative defenses. Plus, the fact that he was charged with first-degree murder by the Denver police, self-defense is not an affirmative defense for that, so he can't even claim that here. You can show where he might be found lesser charges of murder or manslaughter and such like that, but it's very telling that the Denver police charged him with murder 1.